welcome to episode 2 of the AshlanKnits podcast. My name is Ashley and I am coming to you from Minnesota, where it should be spring, but it has yet to come. So I am still enjoying all of my hand knits right now. So this is my second episode. Thank you so much for those who have watched the first and my additional video about all of the yarn that I have in my stash. That was quite an experience for me, but I'm very grateful that I did it because now I have a lot more motivation to knit the things that I already have in my stash. That being said though, there are a lot of things that I want to knit that I don't have in my stash. So I don't think anything is going to change. So let's get started because I have a lot to share with you today. It's been over 2 weeks since my first episode and I have a few finished objects to show. The first one is what I am wearing right now. This is the newspaper pullover by Locatelli. It is a 2-stranded or 2-color brioche. I knit it in a dark navy and then a pale tan pink. It was a top-down in the round raglan design and it is a little bit cropped. I will show you the bottom here if I can stand up. But here we go. It blocked out really well before. It was quite short, but then when you block it, she recommends blocking so that these stripes are moving down rather than out, so that it gives you a little bit more of a high contrast because she's looking for the look of newspaper print. So overall, it was a very fun knit to make. I would say that the yarn I used probably didn't work well together. The reason that I say that is because one of the yarns is Loppe Tough Love Sock. So it's a blue face Leicester, or maybe it's not called Tough Love, maybe it's just called Tough Sock. But it's a blue face Leicester. It's quite a thin fingering weight yarn or a lightweight fingering. And then the other one I used was a cashmere silk wool blend from Sun Valley Fibers, and this one is quite beautiful. I talk a lot about it in my first podcast and how I purchased it, but it is a little bit thicker fingering weight. So overall, I used the suggested needle size and the pattern, which is a US 4 or a 3.5 millimeter, and I got gauge with that. But I would say that because of the weight differences, you could see a little bit of a difference between the knit stitches of the cashmere yarn versus the blue face Leicester yarn. Overall, it's fine, you can't really tell. What I will say about it too is that I don't know if it's because of the blend of the pink yarn or if it's the fact that this is a really dark navy, but when I blocked it, a lot of the color blended together. So at first this was a lot more high contrast, and now you can see if you look very, very close, there's a little bit of navy now adhered to the pink cashmere. So needless to say, I was very sad, but when I put it on, when it dried, it actually looked just fine, and I actually like the muted tone a little bit. I made the sleeves pretty long just so I could have something cozy. It's actually quite breathable, so it's not a super warm sweater. It'll be nice for spring. The bind off that she recommends is a tubular bind off. I did that on the cuffs, and then originally, if you see my episode 1, Ollie is here. He says hi. He needs a haircut really badly. Yes, you do. All right, go over there. If you see my episode 1, you can see that I had planned to do a rolled or a double knit hem where I picked up, or I knit higher, flipped it, and then picked up the stitches and seamed it in. After looking at the video, you can see where I seamed it because I was being very cheap with the yarn that I had. I only had 2 skeins of this blue face Leicester yarn, and I was trying to make it work for the entire thing because I wanted to make sure that the cuffs and the hem at the bottom and then the neckline all matched each other. So when I was making the neckline, I was trying to be a little bit short with myself. What I probably should have done is knit the sleeves first with the hem and then see how much I had left, but I chose to live life on the edge and did this first, and I quite disliked it. Instead of making it full enough so that I could pick up right at where the seam is here, I decided to seam it in the middle, and because the yarn is so thin and I was using slightly bigger needles than I should have for the neckline, you could see it. So I ended up ripping it out and actually just doing a Jenny super stretchy bind off at the top. Again, I'm not really a fan of the neckline per se. I think it looks okay, but when you look closely to it, you can see that the needle length that I used, or the width of the needle, is not long enough for this yarn. It's too big and it's not thin enough, so that you can tell the difference. The neckline is a lot wider stitches versus this, where I dropped down a needle size and it looks cleaner. I could go back, rip it out, and redo it, but I'm lazy and I don't think people can see too much. I might get bothered by seeing myself in this video and decide to be a good knitter and rip back. But right now I'm just enjoying wearing it. So that's one thing. Another thing that I will say about this pattern is I don't know where I went wrong, but my goal was to make a medium in this. I usually knit a small because, again, I've said this a million times already in the one podcast that I have, is that I'm very stingy when it comes to the amount of yarn that I buy for a project. I always play yarn chicken, and I always hope that I can get away with less than I need. So that being said, this is exactly what happened with this. I bought a little bit too little yarn of this, and I was quite worried the entire time I was going to run out. But overall, I said, you know what, I'm going to make a bigger size sweater because I always make a small. I want something that's going to be a little bit more loose fit, a little bit more of something I can throw over, or a layering piece. So I decided to make a medium. When I divided for the body and the sleeves, I realized that I did not have the number of stitches that I needed, and I was actually closer to a size small. So I ended up making a in-between size of a small and a medium, and I just went with it. I still obviously had enough stitches to do the 1x1, two-colored brioche, so it wasn't a problem. And these raglan lines look, I think, fairly even, so I'm not exactly sure where I blew it, but I did. But it doesn't matter. It ended up looking just fine, and I actually am appreciative of the fact that it's a little smaller, because when I blocked it, this thing grew probably about 2 sizes longer than I expected it. So I'm okay with that, but that was something that I made an oopsie for and just didn't go back and fix it. The one thing that I will say is, as much as I like the look of this, I feel like the snags on everything, and I don't know, I think that's just a brioche thing. So even just putting my, rings through the sleeve, I've gotten it stuck, so I have to make sure that I roll my engagement ring underneath my hand to get my arm through. And so underneath, I won't show you it, but underneath I have several big snag stitches that I've just sewed down, and they're just gonna be there, and just hope for the best that I don't keep creating more. So will I knit another brioche sweater again? Probably not, but I'm really happy to have this because it spices things up in my wardrobe. Anything else that I want to say? I don't think so. I ended up, like I was saying, I actually ended up with almost 50 grams of the Blueface Leicester, the La Bien-Aimée Blueface Leicester left. So I had plenty to make it with. And so I ended up only using 1.5 skeins of the Tough Sock from La Bien-Aimée for this pattern. This is going to be a fantastic, you can see it's a nice dark blue, it's in the color of Winterfell, and it's going to be a wonderful cuff, heel, toe addition to socks, so I'm excited for that. Like I said, it does bleed, so next time I use it, I might, if I'm using it for a light color, I'll probably wash this skein first and then wind it so that the extra dye doesn't dye my lighter color, which is what happened with this, but I'm just grateful you can't tell. When it comes to the other yarn, I ended up only using about 1.5 skeins as well. I have about 50 grams of one of my skeins left, and then I also have an entire other skein left of this. So I'm very excited about this because it is so soft and so squishy, and I will talk about in a little bit what my plans are for this leftover yarn, because I want to use all of it up because it was such a dream to knit with. All right, so I think that's all about my newspaper pullover. I feel very cozy and snug in it, and I don't feel like it's too warm on me, which I am quite happy about. All right, I do have another finished object, which I showed you guys one of my hose in the last podcast, but this is just a vanilla sock knit in the Regia Arne and Carlos yarn. Again, I don't know what color this is, but you can probably find it on any website. It is a self-patterning yarn, which makes it a lot of fun to knit because it just works up really quickly and you get to see the color changes. I'm always very impressed with how they pattern it. I don't know how they dye it to do that, but this was just a top-down vanilla sock with just a typical heel turn, heel flap and gusset, and then a kind of biased toe so that they would fit one foot and then the other foot. Nothing really exciting for these. I usually do a 2x2 rib for the cuff, and then I do 60 on the body of the sock and then 56 down here. Overall, I'm happy with it. It's a little bit rougher yarn, but it is quite sturdy. I think it is acrylic blend. I don't have the ball bend anymore, but what I did was, you can see that they're quite lined up with each other. I tried to match them. So basically I got through one sock, unwound the yarn until I found the start of the pattern for the cuff again on this side, and then I just knit. So they're blocked. I've worn them once, and I'm quite happy with the result. So I haven't knit a sock in a very long time, so it was a lot by memory, and try and remember how to turn a heel was an interesting feat, but I did it. And no pun intended, interesting feat. That's my pun for the day. So that's that. I have quite a bit of yarn left from the ball too, so I'll probably keep these and maybe knit my baby girl a mini version of them, because chubby baby feet are hilariously cute, and I feel like hand knitted socks on chubby little baby feet are just going to be even more adorable. So I probably will use that for that. So those are my two FOs. I'm really relieved that I got both of those done. I really wanted to move on to my next projects, and I'm going to go into my whips now. So I talked about a sweater that I was planning on making for my mom in my first episode. She had a lot of, desires for specifics of her garments, so we settled upon doing the sweater number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I had already ordered the yarn at my first podcast, but hadn't received it yet, so I ended up getting that a few days after I filmed the first episode, and I did my absolute best not to cast on, but I will say I swatched and cast on within about 3 hours of receiving the yarn package. But then I stopped. I said, no, you got to finish your pullover first because you have a half a sleeve left. And so I was good, put it away, and finished the newspaper pullover before I started on my sweater, which is not my usual. So I'm proud of myself for having a little bit of restraint. But yeah, so I am knitting, like I said, my favorite things knitwear sweater number 9. They have a ton of different very simple sweater patterns that you can do. So here is what I have already. You can see that I've just divided for the body and the sleeves. This is a very squishy merino bulky weight yarn. I am making it in the Barocco Vintage Chunky in, let's see, the color is 6104. And I think on the website that I bought this on, they called it the color Mushroom, which I don't know what mushrooms look like this, maybe like a porcini mushroom or those very light ones. I'm not a mushroom expert. But it's a very soft yarn. It is 52% acrylic, 40% wool, and 8% nylon. So she wanted something that would be machine washable, which I feel like if you're gift knitting something, you got to make it machine washable unless you have someone who knows the effects of putting wool in the dryer, which my husband did not and shrunk a hat that I made him. So I've been very cautious anytime I make something for somebody else, which is very rare, I will say that. I make sure that it is machine washable. She wanted something that was going to be a little bit oversized and wanted something that was going to lay and not look super knitted, not too much stitch definition. So we agreed upon the sweater number 9. I am making it in the size large, just based on her measurements that she provided me. I think that it's going to have a lot of nice ease onto it, and you can see here, I think my stitches look quite seamless right now. I have been very cautious and cognizant of how much tension I'm putting on the strand as I'm knitting it to make sure that it's quite even and quite tight. So what I did was, I am currently knitting this on a 6mm needle, which is the largest needle size I have knit something on in a very long time. It's quite different for me now to knit on larger needles. I'm usually knitting on like a 4mm needle or less. So it's weird now to have, you know, to hold bigger needles in my hands. I actually don't like the feeling of it. It feels like my hands are hurting when I hold it like that, especially with trying to keep tension, as I'm a continental knitter, and I feel like I have to be very cognizant of wrapping the stitch around my needle when I'm doing it so that I can get an even stitch. But I digress. So what they use, the sweater number 9 pattern uses a strand of worsted weight yarn as well as a strand of mohair. She did not want mohair, so I went and upped it to a bulky weight, knowing that it would probably get a very similar gauge. And I did. So I ended up getting the gauge on the needle size they recommended, which I forget what it was, but ultimately what I decided to do was, I thought the stitch looked good, but again, it wasn't as tight and clean as what she wanted. So I dropped down a needle size to get a little bit tighter gauge, and a little bit tighter gauge than what was originally called for in the pattern. The plan is because when I looked at the sizes that they have, and that'll be probably my one criticism of this pattern, is that they have 5 sizes total, I want to say. So there's not very many options. But when I was looking at the large versus the medium, she was on the small end of the large, closer to the medium, but I know that she doesn't want something that's too fitting. So the way that I got around that was by planning to knit the large, but on a half size down on a needle that was a little bit smaller gauge. So ultimately what is going to happen is she's going to get a sweater that is slightly smaller than a large, but bigger than a medium. And I think that the stiff definition, I can't speak today, the stitch definition is quite nice. I don't think that it looks hand knit, or maybe I'm so used to hand knit things that I can't tell now if this looks hand knit or not. Obviously it's a bulky weight yarn, so it's going to look like it's got stitch definition. I do have some places where I must have just not been paying attention. This is a stocking net stitch with a little bit of a 2 purl knit 1, 2 purl 2 on the raglans. I was a little distracted, and there are like few areas where I wasn't holding tension as well as I should be, and there's a little bit of gaps. So I hope those block out. I really do. I might block this before I continue on the body and on the sleeves, just to make sure that I don't need to rip back and fix those, because I know that I wouldn't want to wear a sweater, you can hardly tell, but I don't want to wear a sweater that has a little bit of this. So I could rip back. I don't want to, just because I don't like the feeling of the needles in my hands, but I will for my mom, and I should do that. So I probably, like I said, will block this first, see how it looks. If it looks like the stocking net is laying nicely after a block and a wash, then I'll just continue. It's a very, very quick knit. I just have to do it. It's just going to be miles and miles of stocking net now, and that'll be easy. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the arms. She's got slender arms, so I might do some decreases on the inside seam of the arms and maybe pick up a little bit less than they recommend, just to make them a little bit smaller for her. But ultimately, I really like this. I'll probably knit something like this for myself in the future. And she also, too, I should mention, didn't want a neckline that was too high. So I'm hoping that this is kind of a happy medium for her. I like a higher neckline. You can see I kind of like it. Well, this one's not as high as I usually knit them, but I usually knit them pretty high. But she, I don't think, wants it that high. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if she likes it, and go from there. So far, I should mention that each of these skeins of yarn have 136 yards or 125 meters per 100 grams, so not much. So I've already used, I am on my third ball of yarn for this. So I'm probably going to use all of the yarn that I have. I have a total of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a total of 8 skeins of yarn for this. So I think I'll be fine. It ended up being quite cheap too. It cost me like $70 to get. So I'm quite happy about that. And this is a very, very soft yarn. I don't usually knit with acrylic, but I'm quite happy with this. It has a very, very, very subtle halo too. So it does kind of give that mohair look. So overall, quite pleased. And I am hoping to get this done before I see her next, so that I can give this to her. Though it'll be just in time for summer. So she probably won't wear it anyways until fall, but whatever. At least I can say that I finished it for her. So that is my first whip. My next whip I'm going to talk about is one that I got, I'm all tangled in yarn right now, is one that I brought up and found in my ottoman when I was doing the stash organization video. I was looking on Instagram and I saw that Andrea Mowry is doing her yearly make along from March to May, and I said there is no better time to get something off my needles than now, especially since she's giving out amazing prizes. I've actually never won anything in my life before, so I'm not expecting myself to win another raffle, because like I said, I've never won a raffle, so today's probably not my day, but at least I can participate and feel like I've accomplished something. So that being said, I have started to pick up again my rose cardigan. This is, like I said, the rose cardigan by Andrea Mowry. I am knitting it in a solid color. I will show you what hers looks like in case you guys aren't familiar, which I don't think anybody's not familiar with what Andrea Mowry makes. But this is a photo of her rose. She obviously is the queen of fades, and this is what hers looks like. It's a beautiful knit in sections, 4 pieces, cardigan, and then you seam together, and it's got little cables on it and is quite pretty. You pick up after the neckline and the hem, and then it's just kind of an open cardigan. I think she's got a clip for hers. But I decided for myself that I didn't want to fade it. I wanted a simple beige cardigan. Today is the day of beige whips, but I am making this in a mohair combined with a single strand of a fingering weight yarn. You can see that it is on very tiny needles, but the fabric itself is so dreamy. I think I'm showing you the back of it. So you do stockinette back and forth, so you're doing a lot of purling. So if you're someone who doesn't like to purl, it's probably not the pattern for you, unless you can figure out how to knit it in the round, but that completely takes away I think the cool construction of this. But the purl side is ending up gonna be your fabric on the outside of your design. And then this is part of the cable, so it's just a single twist. I think every 8 rows you twist them. And then you're gonna seam to another part here along this. So you're gonna have a nice pretty little seam down the side of your arm and then up the side of your shoulder. And so this is, I think, part of the back piece right now. And I've got a few more rows to do before I cast off this part. I love this. I have quite enjoyed knitting on it. If I could knit on it the whole time, I would. I am knitting this on my ChiaoGoo knitting needles, which I've said before are my favorite. I just love the way that they feel in my hands. This though is a size US 2, so a 2.75 millimeter needle. So this is gonna be a very long knit. I hope that I can get it done before her make-along is over, but I don't know. I think I will if I just solely knit on this. And I mean, you can see where my cute little donut stitch marker is. I did this in a day. Granted, I was knitting a lot on it, but it's gonna be a little bit. And if you've ever held two strands and one being mohair, they're very easy to drop, especially when you're using metal needles. So it does take a little bit more concentration than a typical stockinette sweater like my sweater number 9 will be. But I actually have very much enjoyed the process of this, so I'm really looking forward to continuing. The yarns that I am using for it, so the main color and the main strand is this Camello Merino yarn by Plymouth Yarn Company. It is a 80% extra fine merino wool and 20% baby camel. I have never knit with camel before, and it's quite soft and quite springy. This is 180 yards per 50 grams, and the color is 30. This looks almost identical to the color that I'm using for my mom's sweater. So there's a lot of beige in my life right now, and it's kind of sad. I feel like I'm not doing anything fun. But yeah, so I've been using this, and then I'm holding it, like I said, double with mohair. And I am using, sorry for the crinkles, I am using the Southampton, Valley Yarn Southampton, 72% kid mohair and 28% mulberry silk. I'm impressed with myself that I just read that backwards in the camera. And this is in the color 22, and it's a little bit more of a chocolatey hazelnut. It's a very soft merino, it's this very soft mohair. It's obviously a little bit different than I think the more specialty mohairs, but I think this works just fine. I think that together you can see that these are a little bit high contrast. So it's really cool when you mix a piece of mohair with a different color yarn or a little bit different shade. It makes a really fun kind of effect to it. So you can see that my total my fabric now looks marled, which I love. I love a little bit of contrast. It makes it a bit more fun, and it makes the sweater look a little bit more lived in. So I'm excited about that. So I'm very happy with this. I think I bought a total of 8 balls in each of this. I am making the size small, which is typical. Again, I didn't try to buy more than I needed, but I think it's gonna look nice. It's gonna end up, it looks pretty short right now if you look at it, if this is the back, but you pick up and do a big ribbed bottom here. You have a ribbed hem for the sleeve, and then you're obviously gonna have that picked up and knitted collar. So I think it's gonna fit very nicely. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet for the needles. I've come across this a couple times with Andrea Mowry patterns, is she must just have a stinking tight gauge. She probably does, because she's a fantastic knitter. But the fact that I had to go down to 2.75 millimeter needles makes me concerned about the fact that she says drop 2 sizes for the hems, when I'd be like on knitting on like size 0 needles. So I probably won't do that. I'll probably knit on a US 1, which I think is a 2 millimeter. Maybe it's less, I don't know. I'm very bad at the conversion, but I'm probably gonna drop to a US 1 because I have those in my stash. I don't have a US 0. Do they even come in like a 0.5? I don't know. But I'm a little hesitant to do that, but I'll see how it looks and then decide. I think just dropping down to a 1 is gonna be plenty of a change for me. But yeah, so I'm hoping I'm gonna submit this to the make along and join in on the fun on Ravelry, and then hopefully get this done by the end of the make along, which is the end of May. And join me if you want to in the make along. I think it would be a lot of fun. And I'm really hoping that this is done because this would be a fantastic cardigan to have on those chilly Minnesota summer evenings. So I'm very excited about this, and I'm really looking forward to picking it up again. I do, for my cables, use a cable needle, and the reason that I use a cable needle for this project is because of the fact that we have an extra strand of the mohair. I find that having to pick up 2 strands, so if you're doing like, you know, a 6 crossover cable, you're going to have to pick up 12 strands of yarn. So I find that the cable needle saves my tail a lot of the time. But usually when I'm knitting and it's just a single strand of yarn, I'm not using a cable needle because it's much faster to do without it. So yeah, that's my other whip, the one that I'm quite excited about. I think it's going to be a process knit, and it's going to take a while, so I probably won't be having much done, or I'm going to show you this again in episode 3 and you're going to say, Ashley, it looks like you've done nothing on it. And that's okay. I'm gonna enjoy it versus trying to rush to get it done. Okay, so I have one more whip to show. So as you can see, like I said, it's like the parade of beige sweaters this week for me. And so I decided, after I cast off my socks, to get a little color back into my life, because I'm still waiting for spring to come. I can't go outside yet. There's no grass still. There's still dirty snow on the ground. So I just need a little bit of vibrance in my life. So I decided to knit up some socks. So I ended up making, or starting, I should say, very recently, a little self-striping sock with a cute little Stellina hot pink cuff. I am using, and if you watched my first episode, this was a yarn that I just recently bought. This yarn, it is by it's by Earth Yarns in their unique yarn. It's 100% superwash extra fine merino. It's 435 yards per 100 grams, and it is a self-striping yarn. I assumed it was, but sometimes I've picked out yarns and I thought they were self-striping and they just were variegated, and that's probably an oops on me. But this is 100% a self-striping yarn, so I'm quite excited about that. What I did too was, for the cuff, I used this very glittery Stellina hot pink that I got as one of my Knit Crate sock crates when I was, like I said, had more money back then and I could do this. This is their Uru yarn from Knit Crate. This is the colorway Apple. It is a sugared sock, so 70% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 10% Stellina. It is a fingering weight, 399 yards per 100 grams. And they are exclusively hand dyed for Knit Crate, so I'm not sure if you can get this still. But I got this in my Knit Crate box and I thought to myself, oh dear, when am I ever gonna make something hot pink with Stellina in it? But today's the day. So I really like the combo here. As you can see, let me see if I can hold it up. I am sorry, I am in my basement right now. My husband is working upstairs. My daughter's at daycare and he shooed me down into the basement. So something, the lighting might not be the greatest, but you can see here there's a hot pink in here and it matches perfectly with this. So I think this will look really good together. I have quite enjoyed already making this. I cast this on and made this much yesterday, not yesterday, a couple days ago. But you can see here that the stripes look very nice, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but this blue is already fading into a purple and this green is already changing into a different darker green. So it's almost like a fade within stripes. At least that's what I'm thinking it's gonna look like. So I'm excited about that, but this is bringing me so much joy. The plan is gonna be that I just knit the stripes all the way to the toe and then do the hot pink in the toe and then do an afterthought heel with the hot pink. I think that's gonna look super cute. And then because I have small feet, I know that I will have plenty of yarn left over of this as well as this, and I'm going to knit my daughter some matching socks with me, because again, I think chunky little baby feet and hand knit socks are gonna be just so stinking cute. She'll probably leave her socks on for about 3 seconds before she pulls them off and throws them somewhere, but for those 3 seconds, it's gonna be adorable, and I'll make sure that I get a picture so that I can remember it, even though I'll probably never see where that sock ends up ever again, because if she's not wearing it, Ollie's got it in his mouth somewhere, and then he stores it somewhere. And we have a lot of mismatched single socks in our house that we don't know where the partner went. So I'm sure that that'll happen with my hand knit socks for her as well. But still, it's been a really fun project. I'm glad that I knit something that has a color to it. I think that's the nice thing about knitting socks, is that no one's gonna see them. They sit on your feet, and so for someone like me who wants something to look very nice or even store-bought when I'm wearing it out, which is just a personal preference, colorful socks are a way for me to express myself and have some fun, and I feel exactly that way with this pair of socks, so I'm excited about that. So that's my other pair of socks that I'm knitting. I think that's all the whips that I have today. So I am going to just talk about some plans that I have for upcoming knits. I don't have anything else to show, so if you aren't interested, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I see you next time. But if you are, let's talk about my knitting plans. So, as before, I mentioned that I used this in this pullover, and I love how soft it is. Like I said, it's a cashmere silk merino blend, and it is so scrumptious and soft. The color is so pretty. It is in the colorway Petal Pusher, and it's by Sun Valley Fibers. It has, let's see how many, I don't think it actually, oh, it does, 400 yards, it's covered. Yeah, 400 yards per 100 grams. I have this left over from my sweater, and it's about 50 grams, so total I have about 600 yards of this left. That will be plenty for me to make what I am planning on making with it, which is going to be a little sleeveless turtleneck. I want something that's going to wrap around my neck because the stuff is so soft and squishy that I do want something that's going to cuddle me up, but I also want something that's going to be sleeveless so I can layer it and wear it in the transition from spring to summer or from summer to fall. So I don't have a pattern for this, so I'm just going to make it up on my own. Basically what I'm planning on doing is like a raglan increase, start from the neck, and then probably just raglan out so that I have a sleeve that kind of goes out to a little bit in for my shoulders, and then divide for the body, kind of bring it in a little bit, and then same thing in the back so it makes a little bit of a racer back in the back, and then knit down. And once I'm able to get it to a certain length, I like to wear cropped tops, not super cropped. I don't want like my stomach to show, but I like something that's a little bit shorter because I always wear high-waisted jeans. I know I'm such a millennial. I wear a lot of high-waisted jeans, but the nice thing is that you don't need a long shirt because I just kind of tuck it up into my jean. So once I get to a certain length, then what I'll do is I will pick up the stitches at the neckline and then knit a nice rolled, I don't even know if that's what you call it, a like rolled thick turtleneck neckline. And then anything I've left over, I'll pick back up at the bottom, knit it, and then just do a very tiny hem at the bottom and then call it good. So that's my plans. I'm probably just gonna knit stockinette, maybe with a little bit, Ollie's here again, you can just see his big muffin head. But I might, what was I saying? I might make a little bit of design on the raglan increases and maybe down the side of the sweater, but I'm not gonna get too fancy with it. I'm more just interested in getting this all knit up so that I can wear it out, maybe under a blazer. I think that would be really pretty. And that way I could wear something out to like a restaurant and then be able to take my blazer off and just have a really cute sleeveless turtleneck. So that's my goal with that. When that will happen, I'm not sure because I have a lot of stockinette projects going on right now and I'm kind of getting bored of stockinette. I think that it's really nice TV knitting and I've been binge watching Below Deck on Peacock. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It is my dream life. I would love to be a stewardess, but I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but for some reason that one just is my favorite. So stockinette projects are fantastic for that because I don't have to think. But again, you saw the whips that I have. I've got 2 large stockinette projects, one in the round, one flat, and then I have a pair of vanilla socks. So I have a lot of stockinette. So I am thinking I'll probably put this on the back burner and pick it up when I've run out of stockinette projects to do. So that's one of my planned projects. The other one is I have been dreaming and dreaming of Fair Isle sweaters and cardigans. I went down the rabbit hole of Marie Wallen's designs. She's been around forever. I think she was in charge of Rowan's designs at some point. But she, if you don't know her designs, look them up. She was just interviewed not too long ago with Fruity Knitting, which is a great podcast if you haven't seen it. And I just fell in love with all of her designs. I think that I just am craving a good colorwork sweater for me to do because I've just been so much enjoying the process of knitting the rose cardigan that I want something else that I can knit that's going to be kind of a process knit, as well as something that's going to bring color and vibrance into my life. So I was thinking back at my stash and deciding what I wanted to knit with. I'm trying my absolute best in 2023 not to buy yarn. That being said, my birthday is next month, so I probably will convince my husband or my mom to buy me some yarn to make a Fair Isle sweater that I have plans for, which I'll show you in a second. But first, before I get distracted, I found that I have, let's see how many, I've got 6 balls of Knit Picks palette yarn. It is one of their most common yarns. They have, I can't say a million, but they have a lot of colors to choose from. So these are this one's navy, but this is a 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It is quite woolly, quite scratchy, which I don't mind at all. And so I think that this will be a fantastic yarn to knit colorwork with. You can see that it's just a navy. The color specifically is 6416, and again, it is, oh, that's blowing out, is the navy color. Like I said, I have 6 balls of this. There are 231 yards in each ball, and this is a fingering weight yarn, which is obviously, like I said, my favorite. It is quite, I think, a high twist yarn, and it's a thin fingering, so it's similar to the navy and this. But I have this, and then I also bought a couple years ago, I would say, this crazy Zauer ball by Schopel. It is 420 meters per 100 grams. It is also a fingering weight yarn. It is 75% superwash, 25% polyamide, so 75% virgin wool and 25% nylon. Anyways, you can kind of see here the way that this is gonna work up. If you can or can't, I'm not sure, but you can see that it's a fade. It reminds me a lot of the dyed in the wool from Spin Cycle, which is a little out of my price range right now. So I'm excited to try this, but I think that these two together, let's see, will make a really pretty colorwork sweater. Both are quite scratchy, and so I think that they'll adhere together nicely. So that being said, I was looking at all of the different color works that I want to do, understanding that I only have one skein of the Zauer ball, so I'm gonna have to find something that's probably either in the yoke or down by the hem and the sleeves to knit. So let's see here. So I found the Otra Yoke cardigan by Skeindeer knits. Like I said, I'm sorry for the fact that there's a bright light behind us, but it's so dark in the basement. Oh, can I do this backwards? I probably can't. Anyways, here we go. So you can see that this cardigan has a really pretty yoke, and then it is a fingering weight cardigan. Let's see if we can show you the front here. There we go. It's a cute little petite cardigan that looks quite fitted with a really pretty neckline on it. I think that my colors together will look quite nice in that. Maybe. But what's fun about this too is it's not only color work, but she steeks. I've never steeked before, and I think I've seen people steek with the Knit Picks palette, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll see how it goes, but I'm excited. I think it'll be fun too to put buttons on something because I don't have any cardigans with buttons. I just always have like big loose cardigans that I just throw over myself, so that'll be a little bit different. She knits this Otra Yoke cardigan in Rauma Phenol, and it's a fingering weight sweater. She does it on US size 6 or 4 millimeters, so right in my wheelhouse. And it's got a little bit of positive ease, but not much. So I'm excited for it. I think that it'll be a really pretty cardigan to wear on, again, summer nights. It'll be really cute with jeans or white jeans and a tank top underneath, and we'll see how it goes. I'm a little concerned about the navy in here making the color work look a little muted. So there's a chance that I'll end up cutting out the navy part of this and just keeping like the oranges and the reds in it. What's really cool about this yarn and why I like it so much is that there's 2 strands per piece of yarn. And so you can see it's always running navy through it, but then it just changes the color of the other yarn that's worked with it. So I'm really excited about that. I am jonesing to cast that on. Oh shoot. It's gonna still be stockinette, which is fine. It's just gonna be more fun to do the color work. So I'm wondering, oh goodness, I should be good and try to finish my rose cardigan first, but I am craving color. So we'll see how good I am and then go from there. So that's what this is gonna be. I'm excited about that. Otherwise, I've just been dreaming, like I said, about Fair Isle for a while. I should, because it's gonna be summer soon, be thinking more about all of the summer tops and knits that I can make. But that's just like not me. I've knit a few summer tops, but I just really love cardigans. They're a staple in my wardrobe. And so what I've been looking at too is this cardigan by Sandnes Garn, and it is called, oh goodness, don't trust that this is how you pronounce it because I don't know how to pronounce it. Valldall damekofte. It is a 2-stranded color work. They knit this in this a really, really pretty pink and light whitish cream color. And it looks like it's knit in the round and then steeked. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at it that closely, but I think that this looks like a summery Fair Isle cardigan. So I might have my mom or my husband buy me some yarn for it for my birthday, because I want it so badly. But yeah, so that's a dream knit of mine. I'm hoping that I get to cast that on here soon. But what I was thinking, was like, you know what, let's use what I have in my stash. So there is another cute sock pattern, and I think this is what I'm gonna make when I'm done with my little rainbow socks, is the Loppe sock by Fiber Tales. So you can see it's a 2-color, well, it's actually a 3-color, but I'm gonna do it in 2 colors. It's gonna be a 2-color, kind of all over color work, little dots sock. I have, let's see where they are. Here they are. I have these 2 colors. I don't know what this yarn is. I don't know where I got it, because my daughter ripped off the tags. So, but I do have 2 fingering weight things that I think would look very cute with that. So I think I'll do that as my next project too. So what maybe I'll do is I'll finish my socks. I'll keep working on my sweaters. And then I'll cast on these socks as an interim project for my cravings of Fair Isle. And then once I finish my mom sweater, I will cast on my navy Otra cardigan. So hopefully I can adhere to that. I might not. All right, so I think that's all I have to share. For my acquisitions, I just got my mom's yarn. I'm not planning on getting any more. I did get a few new knit picks, what do you call these, cables, because I have a knit picks options interchangeable set that I've had for a very long time. And again, I'm sorry it's blowing out, but my cables are starting to snag my yarn. They're kind of breaking as I'm a little rough with them. So I just bought some new ones to replace my other ones, and then that's all that I've purchased, which I'm proud of myself. The hope is that I don't purchase anything more by the next episode either, and I don't have intent to. We'll see if that changes, but we'll try. So that was a long episode. I briefly just wanted to chat about, and if you aren't interested, then thanks for watching. I will see you hopefully in the next one. But I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about things that are important to me when it comes to knitting and my changes and all of the things that I've been thinking about when it comes to knitting. And I would love, love, love for you to comment below about your feelings towards this topic and what you're feeling about it, because I am interested in the discussion. So that being said, I have always been a product knitter. I buy yarn, I pick patterns for the end look. So I make a lot of very fine looking stockinette stitch patterns that take me millions of years to make, and that I literally am just knitting as fast as possible because I want to get it done, I want to get it off my needles, and I want to get it on my body. I have noticed in the past few months that I have been slowly transitioning from being a product knitter to a process knitter, which I have never been before. After going through all of my yarn in the past video, I was looking and seeing that all of the sweater quantities that I have right now are for pretty basic stockinette, pretty cardigans and sweaters, but they're not going to be the most fun thing to knit. Stockinette, in my opinion, like I said before, is very relaxing, and it's a very nice TV knit. Read a book while you do it, chat with people while you do it. But as somebody who works a lot, who has a very high intensity job, I need something that I can focus on and distract the rest of the constant chatter in my brain. And I want to be able to focus on the task at hand because I find that very meditative. So the idea of making a Fair Isle sweater, or one with a lot of cables, or ones with lace, or ones with an interesting construction that I've never done before, they are starting so much more to appeal to me. I'm getting more interested in the idea of making something that's gonna hopefully be a generational knit that, you know, my daughter can wear or take with her when, you know, she gets older and I pass it down. So I'm looking more and more forward to those projects that are going to give me that sense of calmness, that feeling of warmth inside me, versus the stress of like, let's just get this off the needles, let's get to the next thing, which has very much been how I've knitted. I'm a very goal-oriented, task-driven person. But as of right now, I'm kind of stepping back and saying, if this is a hobby for me and I'm not knitting a sweater for any certain person that I need to get off the needles quickly, why am I rushing to get something off the needles? I have plenty of sweaters already and knitted things to wear, so I can be a little bit slower and enjoy the process, because I just absolutely love the rhythm of knitting and purling. I actually very much enjoy purling. So I just want to get something that I can just knit on for a while, know that it's going to take me some time, but then feel like when it's done that I've done something and accomplished something awesome. So that's where I'm headed with the Fair Isle. I'm hoping to cast on a lot more advanced sweaters. I'm always going to be a sweater and a cardigan knitter, but I'm hoping to cast on things that I've never done before and push myself to grow in technique and in, you know, being more polished with the way that I'm knitting versus just trying to crank out as many sweaters as possible. I will say I will still have probably a lot of stockinette sweaters, and I have plenty in my stash right now that I'm gonna knit, and I'm excited for those. And I'm not saying that I'm not gonna be somebody who does that, but I really wanna ensure that I have one thing on my needles that feels like when I pick it up, I can focus on it and I can just tune out the rest of the noise that always is going on. So right now for me, that's probably my rose cardigan. I've got my easy knit, like my stockinette sweater that I'm making for my mom. And then the rose cardigan has a little bit interesting construction, so that's kind of where that's at. So my goal, I think, is gonna be to have one whip that's an easy stockinette, either that be a sweater or a pair of socks. I'll probably have both on the needles, a sweater and a sweater from my stash that I already know what it's gonna be and I already have the yarn. And then I will have an easy vanilla sock on the needles or something else that I've planned with all the sock yarn that I have behind me. And then my other whip is gonna be something that's more for process knitting, when I just wanna unwind and unplug from the world and just enjoy the feeling of the yarn in my fingers and watching the fabric grow in front of me, and work on just trying to make everything look much tidier because I cut a lot of corners. Works out. Knitting is forgiving, but I do cut a lot of corners, and so I want to work on being more cognizant of what I'm doing and more polished with my knits. So I'd love to hear about you guys. If you are a process or a project knitter, I think that it's a really interesting topic, and it's always interesting to hear what people think about, because as beautiful as a stockinette sweater looks, it is quite sometimes tedious to do and it gets boring. So I want a little flavor in my life right now, and I am focused less on the end result versus how it feels to make it, and I want to enjoy it. So that's me. I really, really thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe this video if you've enjoyed my content today. I am hoping to do another podcast here in a couple weeks, and if you have anything that you want to know about me, please let me know in the comments below. I am an open book and I would absolutely love to hear from you. I am so grateful to those who I've already connected to. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.